Welcome to the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast, the show dedicated to bring you the news from the oil patch deep in the heart of Texas, with your host, Ryan Ray and Josh Shelton.
We're back with the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in to episode 195. Ryan, we are officially able to not wear masks out in public or at home or on the podcast or anywhere in Texas. I think that
it is
the 10th, but
by the time this comes out, more or less. Hey,
yeah.
We went to a restaurant yesterday, no lie, and they wouldn't serve us because of the mask. And so I don't know how many places are going to keep it up, but they wouldn't. And it's a buffet, so we thought, okay, buffets be back open, and they said no, you got to have a mask for everyone, and so
everyone, even the kids.
They didn't distinguish. But it was just interesting because we kind of thought things would be open back up, but I don't know. I'm curious to see. But yeah, but so per the governor, by the time this comes out, we will be mask free, and so
there was a thing where it said effective immediately, but it had March 10th on there. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that. I didn't read it.
It's funny, but anyway, I'm not gonna name any names. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but we went to eat twice. After that went out, and one of them, just the whole crew had no mask on. People behind the desk, cashiers, the cooks.
Right, that's the thing. So if you don't want the mask, go ahead and take it off now, because what are they gonna fine you for those 10 days? Or,
yeah.
So I thought it was kind of a weird thing. So, but whatever, we're back. Here we go. We do have a 5-star review though, Josh. Here we go. Keep it up. This is from C, the letter C, she 22. Love listening to the show on my way out to cement wells in the Permian. It's a great way to stay informed about the industry and get my mind thinking about the future. Okay. Thank you so much for that. It's always good to get a 5-star. We're now at 301. So now the next goal is 400, right? We get 400. And listen, this made me stop real quick and think. I was looking at some shows the other day because some review stuff came up, and we have a lot of reviews. And so just thanks to everyone who's done that. It means a lot to us. It helps our show, helps support the show. There's a lot of shows who actually have bigger audiences than us that don't have as many 5-star reviews. So we do really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got some of the best listeners out there. I mean, we've very engaged, man. Polar Plunge, that was a hoot. Is that 2 years ago now?
Yeah, well, it been January 2020, right?
Oh, it was. Yeah, that's just a heck of a year there.
I'm just glad we didn't do it January 2021.
Me too. I wouldn't have survived that.
I wouldn't have survived. I would
have went down and just stayed there.
You'd have went down and popped up as like a big floating ice cube.
Yeah. So, Ryan, there's several things that have come out this week. I guess let's kick it off with talk about the Saudis. So last week, while we were talking on the show, 2 days from then, the OPEC was supposed to have a meeting. We were both expecting for them to put, 1 million barrels of oil back on the market because prices are up.
Mm-hmm.
This is their opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why in God's green earth did they decide not to do that?
I mean, I think the person to ask, because he was gloating over the weekend to me, is part-time co-host Robert Martinez. As he said that he was he was really bullish on oil and we weren't. So he was kind of gloating over the weekend. I said, I didn't know that you had those Saudi connections. So I'm beginning to think that that Robert has some kind of inside scoop with the Saudis because, so there's a lot of ways to look at it, and maybe they just want $100 oil or $80 oil. I don't. It could be that they think that the U.S. shale producers just do not have the capacity to drill the price back down again. And
I saw that. There's a comment on a CNBC article where they were asking the Ministry of Energy, and they said they didn't believe it. They could go back to the drill baby drill days. Right. I don't know, if he said it exactly like that, but essentially that's what he said. And so he wasn't fearful. Let me tell you something though.
The worst thing you can do is say, "Hey, America, I don't think you boys can do that." We'll do it to set you off like that's
hold my beer.
Hold my beer, baby.
Yeah. So
negative 37 was something. Hold on.
Yeah. Watch this. Yeah. So I saw that and was like, I think he may have under anticipated what could possibly happen. I'm not saying it will, because we have seen some consolidation, and companies may want to be a little bit more responsible the way they handle it. So he could be playing it right, but it seems to me that he's taking an opportunity to make a lot of money.
Well, so if he is right, and prices, there's a lot to unpack on this. Let's just talk about the prices for 1 second. If he is right, and the U.S. producers just cannot drill enough to drill the price back down, and it stays at 70, huge win for the Saudis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Price is up to 70, they're winning. Some shale producers will do good, others will still struggle. But for the Saudis, it's a huge win if he's right. And so just from that vantage point alone, if he is right, it's a very shrewd move. They were right in January, and now they're right again in March. So we'll tip the cap to them if they're right. The other thing is that, China is the number 2, 3 consumer of oil. And if you look at some of their economic numbers, there's some concerns that, maybe their GDP growth for 2021 is not going to be that great. Maybe 2020 wasn't as good as we initially thought. So if, when I think of the OPEC or the Saudis or whomever, I always presume that they're talking to government world leader types, and they're getting inside information. So I wonder how much of the Saudis' decision is based upon them hearing directly from China about what China's expecting to buy. And so could it be that China's like, yeah, no, we're tapped out of the market right now. We've bought too much or whatever, we're going to, reduce our buying. And so the Saudis are kind of like telling everyone implicitly like, hey, demand's not really back because China's this. So I don't know. The other thing might be is that the Saudis want the price to be up. You start drilling now, you have summer demand. And so people start drilling, kind of keep the price in check. So as summer demand from the U.S. comes up, the price doesn't get out of control. And maybe so there's a lot of possibilities here why they're doing it. And so, but yeah, it's a risky, interesting proposition from their standpoint. And I know it shocked a lot of people. But the final thing I say is that last week we had the record build in storage with 23 million barrels of storage, right? And the prices still went up. So I don't know how that happens when you have a record storage increase, but it did. And so there is, I think, plenty of reasons to be concerned that the price is still overinflated, but it is what it is. So we'll see.
So one of the questions I have, and I don't know enough about it to give you to have much insight here, but is Russia in? Are they okay? Are they complying with these? I mean, I know what the Saudis did, but are they expecting a certain amount from Russia? We hadn't researched. It's kind of just off the top of my head, so we might have to follow up next week. But I mean, so because I know Russia was tired of them keep having to hold back barrels while America was drilling, and it seems like Saudis are allowing that to happen again. Is Russia under any constraints of what they can do, or do we know?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where Russia came out at, because they were not in favor of what the Saudis were proposing. But I don't remember. I want to say they had a small increase, but I don't remember off the top of my head here where it is. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, small. Here it is. Russia and Kazakhstan. Okay. Under the agreement reached Thursday, most members of what is known as OPEC Plus alliance agreed to keep their output unchanged, with the small exceptions of Russia and Kazakhstan, to amount to 150,000 barrels a day combined. So not much.
Not much. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's going to be interesting as well, because the longer they draw this out, I mean, there are these countries that are really wanting to ramp back up.
The other thing, though, I thought was interesting is that a lot of the OPEC member nations, Nigeria and all the other nations, they're coming out kind of supporting the Saudi sentiment. So, of course, Nigeria needs like $130, $140 break even price. So, yeah, but they meet again in a month, so we'll know in a month what they're going to do for the next couple months, and so it's interesting to see.
Yeah. So
it's good news for folks in the oil patch right now, it seems.
Heck yeah, no doubt. I mean, a month of good news here. So it looks like David Blackman put out an article on the 5th this would have been soon after that meeting. And he thinks that the next U.S. oil and gas boom is suddenly on the horizon now. I don't think it was just because of this, but I guess the combination of maybe the cold freeze, the Saudis not putting oil back on the market. It looks like there's there's also, Ryan, we're going to be talking about this here in a second. The missile that hit, I think, Aramco. Was that last night?
Yeah, but I don't think it did any damage. But yeah,
I guess just the fact that it's going on though is driving.
Yeah,
could potentially drive prices up.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help prices. It ain't going to hurt them. That's for sure. I agree there. Yeah, so I love how he opens this up. He says, the history of oil and gas business in the United States is that every time the experts all line up to declare it's dead, it finds a way to come roaring back. Oh, okay. Okay, David. Well, agreed. However, I would say every time we all line up to say it's back, it seems to die again. So that's kind of the problem with the industry. Let's see here. Domestic oil industry. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to know, we talked about this going into 2020, which was kind of in 2019, this whole narrative of, if you had bad grades, you need a few years to kind of get your grades up in order. 2020 would seem to be a significant setback for U.S. producers. And so, and not all of them, but some of them. And so you talk about that we've had some M&A. How many will be able to get money to go drill? I don't know. Is the industry back? Is it, when we say it's back, what does it mean now? And that's an important question to talk about. Are we getting back to previous production levels, previous production highs? And if not, then we could be back, but at a lesser rate. So we could have a new peak, if you will. Do we exceed previous production levels? So I think we're a little. I love Blackman. We'll get him on again, but I think we're a little early to say that we're back, because, as Baby Blackman has pointed out multiple times, everything's dependent on OPEC Plus keeping these agreements in place. So they came out in April, May and said, hey, you know what? Screw you guys. We're going to increase production by a significant amount. Well, then this whole thing falls apart again.
Yeah. So if you look at the bottom line at the very last paragraph, given the caveat, assuming that the current discipline of the OPEC Plus group continues to hold together for the coming 2-year time frame, that's a big caveat. It goes on to say the domestic oil and gas business is likely headed for another boom. It would probably be a more modest than the last boom, given the more disciplined outlook of the corporate players, but a boom will most likely be. Yeah. So the OPEC Plus, that's going to be a big one. And then just funding. People have been burned. And I also think it's going to have something to do with how the government incentivizes certain things. I think Tesla is set to have a huge year, but I wonder if the base load capacity for energy in Texas is going to be incentivized, with natural gas or coal or whatever. Are they going to try to address this? And we're going to get into some of that as well, but there's opportunities.
The other thing is that, Biden has talked about trying to kind of reestablishing something with Iran. We'll see what happens. But you also have Venezuela. And so I saw some chatter that maybe they're going to change their stance on, the U.S. is going to change its stance on Venezuela. We'll see. But if it does that open up Venezuela's production? And Venezuela's production is down, like 500, 600,000 barrels a day. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was, 1.5, 2 million. So, can they get back up to 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million? I have no idea. But, if they're, there's a lot of, while there are a lot of bullish signs right now, there's still a lot of traps. So, but hey, you know what? We can change our minds week to week. That's the beauty of the show, right? We can just come back next week and say, drill, baby, drill. That's what we can say.
We can pretend to be Fauci and just, all over the place. We can
just change
it.
Rip it and rip it.
So the article came out about the Winter Storm 2021, and it basically says oil and gas interests left to self-regulate in aftermath of Winter Storm as Texas politicians pile on to ERCOT. So there's another article, I don't know if I even put it in here, that ERCOT was mistakenly charging like $16 billion to energy companies that was then being passed on to some of the consumers because of mistakes. Like it was mistakes in their grid. And anyway, there's a lot of mess going on with ERCOT right now, and I don't know that there's going to be solutions that they're actually going to bring to the table for us.
Let me just point out, this goes back to the question that we've been asking this podcast is there liability, right? Yep. And because it's not clear, or at least, okay, if you're a lawyer, you want to come talk about it, please come. We'd love to have you on. But when you get in these situations, what you find out is that the whole system is kind of predicated on it working. And then when it doesn't work, you're like, well, who's to blame? And there's really no one to blame. Okay, you got ERCOT, obviously, but beyond that, it's like, well, who's to blame and who's taking responsibility, and how do you figure this out? And because, we've seen, I'm sure you've had friends or people that who've sent you their bill and it's out the roof, and it's like, well, this is why I think the liability question is important. And so what is the responsibility of the power company to the consumer? What is there a reasonable level of guaranteed delivery? And, and I think that it's kind of hard to say for 29 million people that you can have those explicit contracts. I understand that, but I think that we need to think about that, because the alternative is that we don't have those type of conversations. And then we just say, well, now we're going to have the government regulate it. Maybe some people want that. I don't know, but it's when we find ourselves in these messes, I don't care if it's a free market solution or a government solution, what you always come to is that no one really wants to take accountability, and that there is no real solution for how to solve these problems. That's easy. And so we try to make a one size fits all, and then no one's happy, it seems.
So I wonder if Texas is even going to winterize their facilities and pipelines and turbines, and are they going to do that, or are they going to increase base load capacity? Or are they going to keep incentivizing some of this green energy? I mean, there needs to be something put in place to prevent that from happening, because I mean, this was devastating for people that, older folks at home relying on oxygen. And I mean, it was unacceptable.
I think we agree there. I just,
and I'm not saying incentivizing is the way to go necessarily. I think if they're going to incentivize something, this would be better to incentivize than things that are not going to help, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. But the couple of questions, and I don't know, maybe again we have a grid expert who can come on. How long will it take so how much stuff has to be winterized? How long does it last? So if you take it like a plant and you winterize it, like, does it last for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? I have no idea. I'd love to know. And then, so you kind of have those questions. And how long will it take to do the whole state? So because you might, these are questions that I'm just asking to the listener here. If you say, well, it only lasts 5 years and it takes 20 years to do the whole state, well, then you're in a cycle of constantly doing it, which is fine. It's just, you need to let the consumer know that hey, by the time
your energy costs are about to go up.
Your energy costs are about to go up, and by the time the next one hits, we still might not have the whole state done. Or maybe it takes 3 days to do the entire state. Obviously not, but I don't know. So if next winterization, I'd love to have you on.
I think that'd be an interesting conversation to have with people if they had an opportunity to say, okay, would you rather your energy bill go up by 20% every month, all year, every year for the next 20 years,
or by a generator
and winterize it, or would you rather take that and us leave it as it is and have to deal with these problems every 10 to 15 years?
Well, I mean, how much does the generator cost to run your house?
Probably $5,000.
Yeah, I never have bought one. I don't know. Let's see here. So here's, let's see here.
Depends on what kind of size. I mean,
right.
You got a bunch of little chickens running around in your house.
Right. So here's one that's. This 5,000 is kind of a base load. Here's one that's obviously a lot more expensive. So 3,000 to 5,000. I'm guessing. Never bought.
I think something like that. You could run it. You could probably just run like a portion of your house with a heater, refrigerators, and be comfortable, but maybe not have all your stuff.
Right. So you had to say the problem is. So if you said this storm happens once every 10 years, right? So you take 5. So you'd take 5,000 divided by 120, right? So it's $41 a month to buy that generator over 10 years.
Yeah.
So would you rather pay $41 a month to have the power company provided or by the generator? I'd probably prefer to pay the power company.
The power company to winterize everything.
Yeah. Again, if the math is right, it's $40 a month. Because with the generator, so $40 a month, and then I don't have to worry about this ever again. Versus $40 a month, I've got a generator that's going to break. I got to repair it. I don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah, but there's also, you got to throw in the fact too that, a tornado comes through, knocks out your line, the generator pops on, so you have.
That's true.
That $41 might be more versatile.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If it was,
that's conversations that need to happen where people can say, that's one of the things that happened with the healthcare stuff. Do you want free healthcare for everybody? Well, what if you got to pay for it with extra taxes? But what they would say is, do you want free healthcare? They would say, yeah. When you say, well, this is what it's going to cost you, it's like, whoa.
Right.
So I think when we talk about winterizing it, somebody's got to pay for it, and we got to figure out who it is and what's going to cost us, and just be transparent about it, and we can make a decision. But
the other benefit of the generator, though, is I know the cost of the generator.
Yeah.
Whereas this, they're going to say it's like $40 a month.
And it's 95.
It's like 95. That's right.
Yeah.
So I think I think you're right. It's a great conversation we need to have. You know, break it down. How much does it cost a month? What am I getting in return? Now, I'll make this very clear. I'm not going to pay the $40 a month, and then in winter 2021, you go, oh, by the way, we didn't get there in time. I'd rather bought the generator. So once I commit to paying this monthly fee, the expectation is you can't do this anymore, and so you can't have this can't happen. And so again, not talking about tornadoes. So listeners, let us know. What do you think? And I'm curious. It's not my perspective. It's not cut and dry. If it solves the problem, I would say, $40 a month, I might be willing to pay on my energy bill. I mean, so our energy bill is between, I don't even know, $300-$400 a month, something like that. That's kind of what y'all's is.
Yeah, so ours typically runs around the 250 mark, but we hit over 400 in last month though.
Yeah, but
this was a booger.
Yeah, so 250, 400, something like that. You get the summertime, obviously you're hitting that a lot. So you're talking about paying $440 instead of $400. It's not. I mean, $40 is $40, but the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. And so I don't know. So we move on. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. And at face value, I'd probably say paying the money if they could keep it on. But then you say, well, if you have a hurricane or if you have and that's the other thing. People down south Texas might say, well, listen, we have hurricanes all the time. We'd rather have a generator because the powers go out. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a part of the question there. So the article, I did pull this article, Ryan. So Texas will not fix ERCOT's $16 billion power billing mistake. So the Texas utility regulator had an opportunity Friday to eliminate some of the $16 billion the state's grid operator erroneously overcharged power companies during last month's deadly winter storm, but the board of the Public Utility Commission chose not to do so. So I wonder, it's interesting how that's going to play out, because they could have gotten rid of it, but they didn't. So I'm not saying Texas should pay for it by any stretch. I just think we got to figure out, how do they know 16 billion? How did they come up with that? And is there any way to track where the overcharges came and where the errors were? Because I know that could be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is my point a minute ago. It's like you get in these situations, you find out that, okay, well, there's not a lot of stuff in place here, and so.
So just to give clarification here, the market was at an artificial $9,000 for 32 hours, and it cost $16 billion for that 32 hours.
Yeah.
What they're saying is they should reprice that for those 32 hours and then rebill based on an updated price. Like cancel that, put in a different price, and then rebill it. And that seems reasonable to me, but yeah, we don't know.
I mean,
above my pay grade.
Well, I mean, so here's the quote from the PUC chair, Arthur DeAndre. I totally get how it looks like you're protecting consumers by readjusting electric prices, but I promise you, you're not. You don't know who you're hurting, and you think you're protecting the consumer, and it turns out you're bankrupting someone else. Okay, so the question here would be, is if I'm understanding what their argument is, that if if they over, I mean, you get into some weird stuff here. So let's tease this out. So we have to kind of take this out of the reality of it is. It's about a theoretical world. So if they overinflated the price, right? And they're paying people, time and a half over 40, and they're paying all this exorbitant rate, but the price is overinflated to help offset their cost. That's one thing. If they're sitting around going, oh, you know what? Everyone's freezing to death. Let's just jack up the price to be jerks. That's different. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. If I had to guess, if I understand what they're arguing over here. So you need to more, but I do tend to agree that if they cannot assure the grid is to be on, but yet they can artificially hold the prices up, it seems to be that's, again, it goes back to this whole liability thing. So you can, if you're sticking it to these people that you chose to keep the grid on, and the rest of us are freezing to death. It's, it doesn't seem to be a very equitable system.
Yeah, I wonder too. I mean, if you go in, there may have been like extra costs involved in getting the gas to the market. It could have been some.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
somebody may have been
being inflated. The price actually being inflated doesn't necessarily bother me at face value, because the price could be inflated because of all these extra costs that they're going through trying to keep the power on. Now, some people might say, well, they should have had those costs already built in and all this stuff. So we had to dig through it a little bit more, but it's
Well, wasn't that $9,000 of the inflation? Wouldn't that bankrupt the power companies that are providing the power, because they have contracts with people like me and you to give us power at a certain price? They got to pay $9,000 and then sell it to us for 10 cents or whatever.
Well, no, I think they're talking about. I closed the article out already.
Me too.
I think they're talking. Yeah, on this one they're talking about. So not everyone in Texas has a fixed price, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so some Texas electricity consumers could have benefited from a decision to readjust electricity market prices. And so what I'm reading here is the wholesale prices. So it's those who don't have the fixed price set. And so they're saying that those people got overcharged.
Yeah, they got charged a ton.
Yeah, $9,000 per megawatt hour.
Whew. Yeah, that's scary there, man. I'd bankrupt you.
1 hour. 30 minutes of sweating bullets we talk about.
Yeah, we out of cash flow here. Man. All right, Ryan. Well, we have one article for the Texas Roundup today that is revisiting the Noble Midstream for the Chevron buyout and a $1.32 billion all-stock deal. So I know Noble and Chevron have been in talks, and I think they just completed that. So this came out on March the 5th at 8:30. So this would have been late last week. And so it's an all-stock deal, finishing some of that acquisition, merger, whatever you want to call it, acquisition.
Speaking of that, I forgot to plug the newsletter. So be sure to, we got to bring back Nate. We're up to 301. So bring Nate back, support the show, War Room newsletter. We'll link to it in the podcast. Oops, I'll just go click it. It's I think $70 for the year, something like that. $7 a month is the discount that you guys get because you are our lovely podcast listeners. Helps us out. Really, really appreciate it. And next week we have on someone who's going to talk on about the grid, I think. Let's see here. I think it's the next week or the week after. So no, next week's about safety, and the week after I think is the grid stuff. I don't know. We got some guests coming on talk about this stuff. So we will be back, right, Josh, next week? Nothing else?
Yep. That's it.
All right. Until then, keep climbing.